We are actually live, John Hazelton. How many times has this taken to do this?
I'm scared to
Is
talk
this
in
number
person. Is
3?
it?
Yay! Hello, everybody. I've been attempting to do lives with some fabulous human beings, including John, who's been unbelievably patient to celebrate the launch of Reboot Hiring. You have been unbelievably patient. Thank you so much.
I'm also having to be unbelievably patient for my book because it arrived in the UK just as the day my brother was leaving to come over here, and he was the one meant to be bringing it, so I have to wait to go back over and get it.
Oh no, that's dreadful.
I know.
How
How are you
annoying.
anyway? You good?
I'm very well. So that means you pre-ordered and you
I
didn't
did.
put yourself down. You didn't put yourself down on the pre-order list, did you? Because you didn't get an invite to the virtual book launches that are happening
No,
on
and
Wednesday.
I realised I didn't put myself down for the free merch and all that other stuff, so that was a massive schoolboy error on my part, to be honest.
A lot of people are going to be very disappointed when they're like, well, there's a party going on. Why can't I get in? Well, because you didn't tell me and I can't read minds. Yeah, right. Adds you to the list. Anyway, while I'm adding you to the list, who are you and how many times are you going to introduce yourself before we finally have this not fail?
Well, at least I'm terrible at introducing myself. But anyway, my name is John Hazelton, and I've got this thing called the Holistic Recruiter Club, which I've been doing since January. And I'm like, right, I've been doing this for like what, nearly 20 years,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to try and do something that was giving back, right? I just wanted
Yeah.
to be like, well, I've been surrounded by so many people. I've done so much stuff when it comes from agency side to working for a SaaS provider to working for an RPO. You know, I've done all the different bits
Yeah.
and bobs, very like non-linear background. And I was like, right, let's see if we can have some really nice conversations in public and other people can hear them, you know. A bit like when you were kind enough to do the first one, which was very nice because that helped me get it off the ground. And it still
That
is
was
one of
we
the
had a
list.
ranty rant.
We did have a
But
ranty rant, and it was a good ranty
which is
rant.
why you and I have actually had 2 hours of ranty rants just trying to
Yes.
get 45 minutes out live. So here we are attempting to have another 45 minutes. Maybe we've run out of ranty rants.
No, we can never run out of ranty rants. There's always something that can trigger a ranty rant somewhere, you know?
Which is quite funny. I can see we've gone live on LinkedIn, so that's pretty damn exciting.
Oh,
I
this
mean,
is good.
genuinely, if you'd watched us yesterday trying to go live.
Yeah,
But
that
if you
was.
are live over there, we won't see any of your questions because I'm not going to monitor it. Just looks like I'm laughing my head off in the freeze frame, which is quite funny. So, but your Holistic Recruiter Club is much more than just your podcast, though, isn't it?
It is,
Oops.
but
My
we're
phone's talking to me.
yes, it's true. So whilst it is more than that, we have I have a friend of mine that we're working on something at the moment that we're going to be launching kind of like at the end of the month, and it's all to do with data and trying to kind of get all that data into one place and how can we make more sense of it and make better decisions and start to have a bit more of a seat at that table so you can come to your hiring managers with better data, be more informed and try and maybe speak more of their language. But yeah, we're launching that in a couple of weeks, so that's quite fun. I'm quite excited about this, but also quite stressed because there's a lot of work to do.
Oh, and then I've wasted 2 hours of your time trying to get online.
Absolutely no, because it wasn't wasted. We had a good ranty rant and we had good
We
stuff.
did have a good ranty rant. And I think what's really hilarious is we both won green today without discussing that.
Yes.
Which I think in itself is quite funny. So I quite like that idea with the data. I think there's a lot of issues with poor data, like a resistance to use applicant tracking systems or recruitment databases or whatever you like to call them to even have the data. But then it's the storytelling, isn't it? I mean, so much of the reason I wrote Reboot Hiring is because I want the managers to get that they need to partner with TA. Then if TA is going in with data, they need to be able to get emotion with the data as well.
Exactly.
It's that.
And that's the thing. It's I don't know if I said this to you before, but I probably have like 10
Probably
times.
because
But
which is okay.
The thing for me in TA and HR is that when we do get the data, it's generally missing the bigger picture because there's this thing that I read and it was there's a correlation between the number of ice creams that are sold and the number of people who drown, right? There is correlation between
Yes.
that. The more ice cream
We
sold,
said
the
that
more.
yesterday in our non-live.
Exactly. This was it. Okay. So I told you this yesterday. But
Yeah, which was
what
cool.
happens is people will be like, right, I know how to fix this. Let's stop selling ice creams. It's like, no, let's not stop selling ice creams. Let's maybe consider what else is actually going on. Like, so the difference between correlation and causation is not always what it might
Yeah.
seem like. And I think that that's what's happening a lot in TA. There's like a poor amount of or limited amount of data. People are taking that and they're creating these stories and these narratives. And all it's doing is just mucking up the. I can't remember if I can swear or not, so I tried not to there.
You can
Um,
swear. It is going out on LinkedIn, so it's up to you whether you'd
exactly,
like
but
to
it's
get
not the
told off
process.
for swearing.
Basically, there we go. This is
Yeah.
what's happening, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you start making these poor decisions that leading to different actions, which create more poor decisions, and it goes round and round in circles. So,
Yeah.
that's also difficult. But you know, there's a French company called Dr.
Hang
Lear.
on. We do need to answer the whole ice cream thing, though.
Oh, go on. Oh, okay. So the ice cream thing. The fact is that it's probably like the assumption is it's probably more sunny. So it means that people are
The people are
probably
swimming.
doing both. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
people who don't normally swim, swim. People are going into lakes that don't normally go into lakes, and then they die. So
Yeah.
that's one for you.
Be
Be
careful,
careful
learn how
in
to
the sun.
swim.
Exactly. Basically don't eat ice cream in the summer.
Who was that? It wasn't you I was talking to about the manhole covers and the circle covers. That was another. That was on a podcast.
No, okay.
I was interviewed by Nick at Dice for their podcast. And there was this whole conversation about why manhole covers, or whatever you'd like to call them, are round. I think I just said pothole covers, but I mean manhole. It's Friday. Anything could be coming out of my mouth. And why they're round. And it was just the most hilarious conversation because he then moved on a bit like you did. And I'm like, well, hang on, I need to know the answer. But what I really want to know the answer about this time, though, is you wanted to talk about talent acquisition having a tool prison, which sounds
Yes.
really intriguing. So
Yeah.
what do you mean?
I've started going on the rants on these now. Like I
Good, because that's how we improve the
Exactly.
industry or the profession or whatever you'd like to call it.
And I'm totally open to being challenged on my viewpoint on this, right? It's just how I see it right now. And I just think that there's what I'll give an example. So I was a few years ago, I was working, I was consulting for a French tech startup who were doing really well in the space. Everything was going really well. And for some reason, overnight, everything, all the processes completely messed up. And it wasn't because they changed processes or people had come in. It was because someone in HR had the bright idea of changing the ATS without telling anyone, consulting them or anything. And in their head, they had been sold fantastically by the ATS provider in giving them all these wonderful, whimsical things. And what ended up happening was they had to change all of their processes because the tool would not allow them to do certain things. They even needed to start putting in like approvals to be able to sign off roles. So culturally, things had changed as well. So instead of being autonomous to be able to go and doing stuff, they now had to have this permission, which again, it changes stuff. It changes the dynamic within the culture, making the TAs feel frustrated and annoyed, right?
That couldn't be turned off.
No, it was the system was, this is how their system works, and you couldn't change this thing. It was at the time, we were like, how can you not turn this off? I was like, we just can't turn it off.
Just a bit of code and turn it off. Like,
yeah, you know, and that's that was the thing. So TAs start to become frustrated. Hiring managers now have to use a new tool and they've not been properly onboarded on it. And like, what the hell is this, right? They've got a million things to do. And they're now like, how do we manage this? And what ends up happening is you change your whole process. The data, I'm not even joking, you borderline had to have a degree in data, like to have any idea about one, how to access it, two, how to interpret it, because it was all over the place and all that type of stuff. The reporting wasn't great either. So they'd gone from having this way of understanding what was going on to not understanding and now having to do this whole new way. So my point is, you have to start thinking about the users that are going to use it, not just how am I going to improve my admin by getting a better ATS or HRIS or whatever, that type of stuff. like from a candidate perspective, hiring manager perspective, your
Oh my
perspective,
goodness.
you know?
Well, I've told you about my horror story with that, haven't I? But
Yeah, you
the
have.
sorry if you've heard this before, those that are listening. The I'm gonna tell it again though, because it still blows my mind. You know, that I went to this company and I went to offices on 3 different continents for this company to deliver this work with Sue Ingram, where we were, you know, encouraging brilliant candidate experience and a great process that was going to be so human centered. And then somebody rolled out a HRIS add-on ATS that only had one set of questions for the world for roles. So one set of knockout questions. And because of the regulation with this particular company, they had to get back to everybody. So instead of them receiving maybe, and they genuinely are receiving like 600 applications per role because they're in such an amazing industry, they would have been getting like 3 times that amount because people weren't deselecting themselves by going, oh, well, I don't have that or that. So knocked out.
Yeah,
And you're just going, who signed off on that? And the only way that they signed off on that was to not have the input from those that work in talent acquisition.
of
And this is
course.
what I see happening, that somebody over here makes this decision because the HRIS company is going, oh, we've got this free ATS here, have it. And whoever's buying goes, oh, amazing. We'll stop paying for one that's useful and
Yeah.
has the stuff that we need. And most of them are not fit for purpose.
No,
You know, I say all the way through book 1, shameless plug, The Robot Proof Recruiter, don't buy any technology unless a recruiter has either given input or has created it, because nobody understands the job like we do.
no.
It's a complicated job.
Exactly.
Humans
And
are weird.
everybody thinks they can do recruitment. Every hiring manager thinks, oh, I could do it. If I had the time, I could do this. It's easy. All you got to do is just
You
look at
go
some
then.
applications. Yeah, okay.
Hmm.
Of course we have. Maybe read Katrina's book. Um,
Free managers to read this, including specifically the chapter on how to articulate who you need to hire. That in itself will show you that you can't even manage that, let alone the actually sourcing them or advertising correctly or
yeah, engaging them and all that. But the other thing
mad.
about the tool prison stuff is that it directly has an impact on the company culture
Mhm,
because
mhm,
a friend of mine, she arrived at a company. Again, it was a HRS, ATS, can't remember. And once you applied, it took you to a specific page, but you couldn't
mhm.
customize that page. And the language that was being used in that page did
Mm,
not fit or sound like
yeah,
them at all. However, the person applying, that is your face. That is for them, that
yeah,
is you. And it's
absolutely.
nuanced, but
It's the
it
first
makes
impression, isn't it?
exactly. It makes a huge impact. Like sell me, sell it, sell this to us,
Mm,
sell yourself to me. Well, hang on a minute. We are not like that at all. Like we would never ask this question, and you can't turn it off or change
no,
the stuff. So for them, that just doesn't work, you know. And again,
mm,
that's a part of being in the prison of the tools because you can't
yeah.
change.
It's funny because you also see it with I've seen like really creative, and I'm going back a few years, and this is definitely in the Robot Proof Recruiter because I just thought it was hilarious and really bad at the same time. So someone had taken Adele's song "Hello" when it was quite popular and redone it as a "Come and work at our creative agency," and they'd spent all of this time and effort doing this, and they put it where it would be seen by creatives, and then they sent you to the world's most boring job description randomly on LinkedIn instead of straight to here's my CV or here's my what's it
Yeah,
called, portfolio. It was just like, I
just
don't
missed the
know.
trick.
It's a similar thing. Yeah. They missed the steps of sitting back and thinking, and I think it's the same with the technology. What's it going to be like for the human going through the hiring process? What's it going to be like for us? What's it going to be like for the manager? Everybody needs to step through it and
Yeah,
voice their concerns before anything is purchased.
no,
But it doesn't happen.
no. And something I
And
wrote
I see
about
it getting
today,
worse as well.
the what?
I see it getting worse because everything is now AI. So I just think that it's just, and it's not really, but they think it is. I just think it's going to
Yeah,
get very messy.
these tasks as well. This is the thing I've so I'm kind of like I like AI. I can see the potential of it. I
Mm,
just I don't like the fact that everybody's saying, "Oh, AI, AI, AI," and they
mm,
don't even have the good data in place. You know, they
Yeah.
don't have they don't have the good data, to your point at the beginning. It's not
Mm,
structured, it doesn't make sense. It's like it's missing so much stuff. And all that will do
mhm.
is learn about bad data and take decisions off that bad data. And it's gonna make the problem worse, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Do
was
you know,
it
it's
like, yeah, I can't remember who said that, but I think it was Bill Gates or someone who said if you try and like
mm,
automate a broken process, all you're doing is just like making the problem worse, you know,
uh,
because you're making it exponentially
yeah.
worse. And I think that's what's
I sort of,
happening.
I wonder what happens to people. Like, I don't understand why they're so bought into it. Like, I get that people need to save time. But bless somebody, they took it really well. Like, they learned something from what they went to do yesterday. Someone shared what they wanted to say in a post about me and Reboot Hiring. And I went, well, maybe don't use my name twice. And the reply back was, oh, Chat GPT got a bit excited, ha ha, kind of thing. And I just went, okay, I knew, but I'd already realized this person hadn't written the post because it was so over the top. It was so glorifying me. And that's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book for people to read and change their processes and make life easier for us. And so it was sort of like, can't you see that that would come across and not represent you well? Like that, we've got the AI in the wrong thing. Like most of us would like the AI to wash our dishes. We have robots to do that, not right for us in such a way that it doesn't sound like us.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it always glorifies everything. And if you're using it to do job descriptions, it's it's going to be over the top. I need to shut my curtain. It's got bright all of a sudden. I'm getting a headache. Claire.
No, I
What
do
is
get your
going on,
I
London? What? Oh,
I
that's better.
do get your
What
point
is
though.
going on, London?
I
I've
do
changed
get your
color. I
point.
was going white.
I had to shut mine because it's so bright today. But no, it's the thing for me is it's being used for the wrong stuff. It's
Yeah,
tasks. It's just tasks.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
not how you're meant to use it, right? I don't. I'm. There's only one tool out there that I've seen that has the potential to, whether I agree with what it's capable of versus what it
yeah.
can do, but there is a tool out there, and you're like, yeah, they get it. The founders get it. They can
Mm,
see that by putting it in that layer, hidden behind the
mm,
scenes, doing all of this
yeah,
stuff, that's the added value, right? Like you don't need to have a team of 20 HR admin people just updating stuff and calling people to get the right
yeah.
data in to make it work. If you have the AI that can do that underneath, behind the scenes, and doing that stuff,
So is
I
it
don't
a
know.
tool that gets in touch with people to see, like from that, there's an agency tool, isn't there, that keeps in touch with people? Is that what you mean?
There's stuff like that, but I think it's
Are you
have you
going to
seen
just share what the tool is, or is it secret
yeah, no, I
squirrel?
wasn't sure if you want me to, but there's one called Scotty AI, right? And I look, so I haven't used it. There's some elements of it that I'm like, wow, that's like super cool. Some of it I'm like, it does
Mm,
outreach to people. And I'm like, I get why you're doing that, but it's not really my cup of tea. But the other
mm,
stuff, the deeper layer AI stuff they're doing, I'm like, right, I get that. That really makes big value, you know, across a whole big business, an enterprise business where it can
mm.
take all that data, understand what's going on, and then assist you with workforce planning and that type of stuff, identifying
That's
gaps,
really
problems.
good.
That's smart, right? That really
I
is
mean,
smart.
I remember years ago, and I mean, I'm going back, so it's probably when AI was first actually arriving, and seeing someone talking about IBM Watson and what it could do with monitoring the conversations and things that were going on,
Mm.
and it would be able to say, "Well, watch out, Katrina's a flight risk," and a lot of the time, the manager would be saying, "No, John's the flight risk,"
Yeah,
and it would turn out that Watson was right. Like
yeah,
it would, I would then resign, that kind of a thing. So I've seen it in play in that respect. I guess my issue is a lot of these tools are being used to source and screen, and they have bias built in. So that's the only, there needs to be a sanity check of all this stuff at the current time until you can, until the tool makers can say, this is how we made it and this is how we made sure there's no bias. And I think also anybody purchasing AI needs to be making sure that that's the case. Like
yeah.
anybody, whether it's, you know, talent acquisition specialists or heads of or whoever, you should be saying, tell us, tell us more. And also read The Algorithm by Hilke Schellman as well, like to
Okay.
spark ideas of, yeah, sorry, John.
No, I was just saying that the different LLMs have different strong points.
LLM being a
The large language models, right? So you have you've got
just
like
because I don't know who's listening
no,
and
it's my fault. Yeah, sorry, I'm like, but
yeah.
if you have like ChatGPT as an example
Yeah.
of one, and then you've got like Gemini, you have like
Mm-hmm.
Claude, you have all the different ones,
Yeah.
but they are all starting to be stronger in different things.
Mm-hmm.
So what will happen next is you'll start having these agents that will then
Yeah.
be able to be good at all these different areas, and then they'll all connect. So like a master agent, and then my mind just like I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is literally like being in the fucking Matrix. It's it's,
Yeah.
it's crazy. The
I just
potential
yeah.
is it was I saw the
The
I can't
potential
remember.
is amazing, right? So I saw something, actually I reshared it on Instagram. And everyone's going, yeah, yeah, yeah. So like the AI could detect breast cancer 5 years earlier. That's what we'd like it for. For
Yeah,
screening and ruling people out. mm, mm. I know humans are biased as well, but at the current time, I'm just a little more concerned about that. But when it, takes data and it can map models and give you really amazing stuff,
yes,
I I have less of a problem. I think my problem is more actually the ones that are like open AI, where it is just a melting pot of data and we don't really know the quality. I mind it less. Um, it's so annoying when you can't think of somebody's name. Matt Burns, who's created Atlas AI, which sits over the company's data. And it's really, really, really clever. So if you were to say, oh, can you create a recruitment strategy for me? It will ask you a ton of questions to then produce something that's really
get the
useful. And it's
context
related
first.
to that company's data and some specialists. So he's partnering with people to that are experts in their field. And it's a sealed system.
Mm.
And then it's like it's not just got, if you went to my understanding, I refuse to use it, but Chat GPT and asked it for a recruitment strategy, it'll just give you one. It won't
Yeah.
query you. And then I
No.
have again, I just so I think it's that. I mean, it's a bit like the post yesterday. It was totally done from heart, and the intent behind it was absolutely beautiful. It's just making sure that you think about, well, what is the consequence of that? What is am I genuinely? So if you're using it for job descriptions, for example, am I genuinely representing the company? Is it believable? It just because we don't want people starting and then leaving because it wasn't believable.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the whole point. And these these tools, I don't know if it's still the case, but there was
Mm.
a case study that showed, I think it might have been the Financial Times or someone like this. They
Oh, no,
created,
no, no, no.
it might have been, they created their own large language model, and
Mm,
the ones that didn't have the specific data that was
mhm,
proprietary to Financial Times, the external one still outperformed the internal one because it has so much access to
mhm,
information. Like Microsoft is investing $50 billion into its AI program and data
mhm.
centers. They are
Yeah.
they are buying data centers next to nuclear power plants because it needs
Mhm.
so much energy for it to be able to be trained. And you're like, when you start to think about
Terrifying.
that,
It's
it's
terrifying.
crazy. And we're talking about it creating flipping job
Mm.
descriptions. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
I know, but that's how it's being used right now,
that's what I'm
right?
saying. But that's how we're using it. That's
Yeah.
how we're using it in
I
TA.
look, I know.
The potential of it's huge. Like,
So I kind of get like you've said the opposite of what I've just said. Like I do still like what Matt's doing because I know the quality of the data. So that's
yes,
probably the first point. Actually, it's quality data
it's the
that's
quality
being
and the
used.
context that you're giving
Yeah,
it, right?
but I
Which I
think when you start talking about that, they're doing an extra power plant. I mean, it is something like half a liter of water is used when you run 5 searches on ChatGPT. Just think about that. It's our most
no one
precious
talks about this.
resource.
Who talks about this? No one talks
I
about
talk about
this.
this. I talk about this. I just continue to use Google, which now has AI on the top of it, and I ignore it and go straight to. I want to know who wrote it. I want to.
Yeah,
I want to do proper research. I'm a Gen X. I'm always going to do proper research. I remember the cards in the library. It's just how my brain works. So yeah, I I do use it. It's not that I don't use it. I think it's how you use it. So,
It's how you use it. Like, it's the
yeah.
application of
So
it.
I will not use it to write. I write. This is my thinking. Everything. So whether you read, just shameless plug again, the beautiful Reboot Hiring, and it's fantastic, yellow cover, which I wrote. I wrote that, but did I use Grammarly to check my grammar? You bet. Was it useful? Oh my gosh, yes, because I've just stopped
Of
paying for
course.
it. And now I'm like, oh, I need to pay for it again because it's like I've become quite reliant on it. But it's making sure that I structure a sentence correctly. It's not changing what I've said into
Yes.
something that's not believable or doesn't
Yeah.
sound like me or actually makes no sense, because sometimes they just make no sense.
I
And
know.
I think that's, I guess I keep bringing, I know you're wanting to talk these huge scenarios of where it could end up, but I'm kind of bringing it back to TA all the time
Yeah, of course.
because that's what they're using it for.
Yeah, no, but that's what I know. But I really agree, and I think that's the. I think in the next few years we'll see some. I think we'll see a big shift in how companies like the providers
Mhm.
are trying to use AI within recruitment, within
Yeah.
people, within HR and stuff like that. But I think it's more of a frustration for me is that it's just everything is just an AI wrapper. Everything is exactly the same.
Yeah.
They're using exactly the same models. It's just a wrapper on top of it, and it's not. They're not doing anything that's necessarily innovative
No,
or crazy.
no.
Yeah, it's there's good uses and there's bad uses of it, and I think, like you said, context is the most important thing that you're giving it.
Yeah. And I just think just take a minute, like just, as I said all the way through the route, God, it was hilarious. Somebody was saying to me, "Oh, so you're going to write another edition of the Robot Proof Recruiter?" Because I don't really talk about AI in it, because I don't need to talk about AI in it, because it's just another technical, like another tool, right? I was like quite offended because this had just come out, and it was very clear they hadn't read it as
Yeah.
well. But as I say all the way through there, it's like have a pause. As you said, they rolled out the wrong ATS. Everybody got frustrated. And then there's that knock-on impact that'll look on right through to any applicants as well, because everybody in the process was suddenly frustrated because they were given the wrong tool,
Mm.
or they're probably given a tool without any input as
Yes.
well, which is just super
Without thinking
frustrating.
what
But it's,
outcomes they want, what is the outcome you're just trying to get to
mm,
with this? They're just thinking of
yeah,
these, and nobody ever, well, not ever, but they're not really thinking about that, and that is
it's like,
that is
does the technology save you time, money, and hassle? That's it. Like, does it create a better human experience and save time, money, and hassle? Because if it doesn't do that, then why are you getting it? And
yeah.
it's that, oh, but it does, but
Yeah,
is
but
anyone
I'm getting a
listening to
backhander to be able to go and watch the football. So there we go. There's one of the problems in the space.
That'd be one way for me to not do it. That's another conversation. We're not going there.
No, I
I'll
know. But this is
offend
the
half my readers.
and back to your point. There's something that you said in the podcast you did with me actually, and I've heard you say it subsequently quite a few times now. Is if the manager does not give you the information or the time to talk about it, we do not publish the job, right? So what I would
Yeah.
like technology to be able to do is give you more time to be able to go to that hiring manager and say, right, you're sitting with me right now. I'm getting everything I need from you. And you have the time to pursue that
Yeah.
and do that because you've got all the other stuff going on in the background that you don't have to worry about, right? That for me is giving you that time to pick up the phone and have a chat with your
Yeah.
candidate.
But
You know, make them feel
that's
good.
a tool. That's a tool like MetaView, like a that's not the word. It writes the notes, whatever the word is.
Transcriber.
Um, Transcribe. I was going to say subscribe. I was like, that's not the right word. So that's brilliant, because then you can concentrate on the conversation.
Yes.
Occasionally, I will get people tell me that they can type and concentrate at the same time. I'm very thrilled for you, but I think they're few and far between.
Mm.
I think most people would just prefer like this. So I assume with the recording has a transcription. I don't have to think
Yeah.
about it. You and
Yeah.
I are talking, and I can focus on what you're saying. Because even then, most of the time, even when we're talking, we're already thinking of what we want to say next. We're never really present. It's a really tough skill to,
Yeah. Active listening
develop.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I think it's amazing. And then also because that meeting, and hence I say, like, And I really do make the case for it in here. I mean, it opens talking about the recruitment alignment meeting, as I've renamed it since the other book. But the importance of turning up for that meeting, and that it is much more than just talking about the job description, because it's all the commitment to when are you going to interview, when do they need to start, who's pre-boarding, what happens if you can't turn up for an interview, blah, 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 blah. Like, and making sure they're not going to be biased and all this kind of stuff. And then just also whittling down the must-haves and making it a reasonable process. So there's so much to it. But wouldn't it be amazing if you were sitting there with that transcription happening, and then when the manager says, I didn't say that, he can go, well, actually at 12:45 and 3 seconds you said that.
And you actually repeated it twice.
Yeah, and here it is in the notes. Just saying. It'd be quite handy as well. But I also think it just allows you to then turn up and ask amazing questions and just listen.
Yes.
And not be worried about, oh God, I got to.
The thing I love about this is using the stuff in the right way, right? And the only thing is, just remember that this is just a piece of the puzzle, right? Because you still have all these face-to-face interviews where you don't have that information, so you can't take. It's like the missing data part, right? There's these other conversations that had. I had a question for you, right? It's a recruitment question. Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
What is how do I phrase this? So the topic is closing candidates, right? And I'm using this in this term and this way. And it's something that I've noticed, and you can please challenge me because it's just what I've been seeing, is that when we have people who come from a HR background who move into talent and doing recruitment versus somebody who's worked in recruitment and now doing a bit of both. Right? Yeah. And I find there is much more impetus and comfortable feelings to try and actively close a candidate as quickly as possible once you've identified that person, versus HR. And also, in part, most of the hiring team, they're like, oh, no, it's okay, let them wait till next week. And I wondered what your opinion is on this. Do you have one? Is it a strong opinion?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. Of course, it's a strong opinion. Do I have any other kind of opinions? Okay, so there is definitely, actually, just take it back a step. There is definitely a difference between somebody who comes up the HR route into a talent acquisition role. In general, in my experience, I have found there are exceptions, but there is more concern about the sort of the sales side of it, which I don't. Having come from the agency route, I don't think talking to candidates is selling, but some have that fear. I think when you come in the agency side, you are taught to check in all the time. How does this role match your expectations? What else do we need to do here? And you're doing that all the way through every single interview, every follow-up, and you're having conversations. You wouldn't have somebody interview and have them move through stages without having a conversation with them in between. So you're sort of, what's it called? Pre-closing. And it's natural and it's taught, well, if the good agencies teach it, so that actually when you do get to the, hey, there's an offer, if they're going to accept it or not.
There's no big surprises.
There's no big surprises. Now, I think that should be taught more for talent acquisition, so they're really comfortable with it. What else do we need to do here? Is there anybody else that we need to consider? Because you do get to that point where an offer's made and suddenly they're like, well, I've got to move somebody from interstate or from a different country. So you never mentioned that.
Yeah, you never asked.
And it's asking these big open questions. Because internal recruiters are really under, I personally think, a higher workload. They've got too many requirements a lot of the time. They often just don't have the time. Even if they know how to do it, they don't necessarily have the time. I genuinely think 8 to 10 is enough requirements for an internal recruiter. And I hear them with 40 to 80 and just think, I'm sorry, what? You can't don't be stupid. You cannot at all do a proper job as an internal recruiter on that many requirements. And that's put like per month or on the go at one time.
I can do that now, Katrina.
Oh, no, just AI the whole thing. Just use a robot. It's fine. Maybe if you're hiring 80 of exactly the same thing, 80 drivers, great, knock yourself out. I talk about Yodel's chatbot in the Robot Proof Recruiter. Absolutely brilliant, because all they recruit is drivers. I'm sure they have another team for all the back office, but brilliant. Digressing. However, going back to your question, I do feel that it is okay to give somebody time to make the decision. Probably not a week, but so a lot of people give an offer on Friday. When do you feel you're about to make your decision? I think most people would say probably by Monday anyway,
Okay, cool.
because
Yeah.
they know they don't want to leave the company hanging either. Um, I think if they started saying in a few weeks, I'd be inclined to go, oh, so you have other interviews going then?
Yeah.
But I'd get away with that because I'm cheeky, and
Yeah.
people open up to me. So you have to have the rapport built. If you haven't got the rapport with the candidate, they're not going to tell you.
And
They'll
if you're
shut
not
down.
contacting those people and not listening to them and not asking the right questions, then you don't have that in the first place. I think
Yeah,
that's
and I think
hard.
it's that building. It's acting like one can't say that anymore, can one? Is one allowed to refer to the war? It's acting like Switzerland. So it's acting neutral. And that's how I did it when I was working in house, which is on my profile. It's just like a little hidden away.
Yeah.
And I wasn't on the manager's side and I wasn't on the candidate side. I was in the middle. I was making sure both were happy, that they were going to actually match each other, because there was no point me bringing somebody in who was then going to hate it and leave. I didn't want that, because that's really, really expensive and a waste of my time as well, let alone their time. So it's and stress and all of that. So it's kind of, if you act a bit more neutral, and the candidate will sense that, they won't think, oh, you're on the company side. So you can be a lot more open, like, well, what will it take? And obviously you've got other interviews going. How are we going with that compared to them? Is there things we can improve? What's our salary like in comparison? Because they are interviewing. So don't ask a yes, no question, which they'll say no to because they don't want to lose the opportunity. Like, yeah, how are the other interviews going? That's a very different question to where else are you interviewing, or how many other interviews have you going? It's like, so it's stuff like that. But I think if you're doing the pre-closing, if you're talking to them more and you've built rapport, you probably know. You'll probably hear that excitement straight
Yeah.
away,
And this is where it's okay.
which
And
I
I'm going to
miss.
put this
I
out
really
there.
miss. It was so exciting when people went, yes, and you're like,
I
oh
know.
my God. It's the best
No, this
feeling in
is
the
what
world. By the way, if you do recruitment and you do not get excited when somebody says yes to the job, change professions. Oh my
yes,
goodness.
exactly. And that's
Oh,
the addictive part of it. It's the yes, we
yeah.
did it, and it's like you're buzzing
Yeah.
off
It's the
this. This is
most
the thing.
amazing feeling.
And there was something that we spoke briefly about yesterday, but we're talking about gut feeling, right? And
Yes.
this in this context, because you're doing something so
Mm,
much, right?
mm.
You do, over
Do
years
know.
and years of
Mm,
experience, pick up on
mm.
the way somebody says something, the acting, the behavior, the stuff. That is okay. Just because everyone's
Yeah.
always talking about bias and unconscious bias, sometimes in those
Yeah.
situations, you're allowed to trust your instinct and don't overthink it.
Yeah.
No different
Was
to the police officers who are driving down the road and they're like, that doesn't look right. I'm going to just go and over there. And the next thing you know, they're like, open the door of the car and they've got like a bag of drugs in there or something, because
yeah.
I'm not, I don't know why I'm compared that to
It's not a
recruitment.
great example, but actually, I'm going to bring
You know
it
what I
back to
mean?
the conversation I was having with somebody I absolutely adore. So the vagus nerve actually runs up. So it runs gut, heart, head. So when we have that funny feeling in our gut, and it's very, very small and quiet. So it's not like a loud, like, oh, I don't like that person. That can be a bias. It's kind of like, there's a niggle.
Something's
There's
off.
a, there's a, and I, and that's the thing I think with the trouble with what you just said with the police is it can be racial profiling. That's why I
Yeah,
was a bit like,
but normally, like
so,
the
but
90% of the time, yeah.
it's an instinct, and it's like women will know. They can just sense whether they're in danger or not, and unfortunately we have to be on alert a lot more than men do. And I'm grossly generalizing, but it's like it's that niggle. And so if you have that niggle, then of course what you want to do, if you make sure it's not bias, like you need to just sanity check yourself with the questions that you then ask the applicant or the candidate. What was really interesting with this conversation was that what she was saying was her ex-husband used to say, oh, he'd have these feelings and then they would be proved wrong. Whereas when I have a feeling, it's always right because I'm listening to my gut, which is super quiet, not ego, which is your personality, which it will be like, well, you don't like this particular person because somebody similar looking was once
Yes,
rude to
yeah,
you,
exactly.
or that nationality because somebody of that nationality was once rude to you, or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's that's I always find it's a lot louder. This is kind of like almost like a tickle. It's like,
Yeah, it's a subtle thing. Yeah.
yeah. By the way, just full stop, life, nothing to do with recruitment. Find out what that sounds like, because if you ignore it, you'll regret it. And then you'll know next time, okay, I've got that feeling, whatever it's about.
Yeah.
Just
It's
in
like that
general, it's a really good
sense of
thing to
what's going
learn.
on around you. Exactly. And I think it's
Yeah.
my point is it's okay to trust yourself. And you know, like, you know, when we talk about all these companies, it's like be data driven, be data driven. Someone who I used to work for, bloody smart guy, always
Yeah.
said that it always starts with that feeling first and then back it up with the data to prove
Back it
what
up
you're
with data.
saying is right. And that's basically what you've
Yeah.
got to do. So trust it and then back it up. Maybe you've made a mistake, but go and look into the numbers. And to your point,
Yeah.
I don't know if you said this before we started talking, it's about being curious, not being lazy,
Be
going and
curious.
having a look and this type of stuff, right? It's
There is a chronic lack of curiosity in people who spend their day asking questions. It is so weird. Somebody else I know is interviewing recruiters at the moment and finding they don't listen. Oh, no, I'm trying not to give away who it is. They are stunned that there's just, it's like, why aren't they listening? That's what we do. We ask questions and we listen. And then when we get the answer, we're like, something doesn't feel right with that. Dig in, go further. Or when you pass it to your manager, hiring manager, if you will, then you say, hey, I've interviewed John. Can you just check on this? Because I'm just not sure about this. And hopefully that's a hard skill or it's a experience,
yes.
or can you just, because I just want you to tell me what you think. And you try not to put you kind of influence, but not, to make sure it's not biased. You don't want to go overboard, do you?
No,
You
you
don't
don't
want
say,
to go,
I think
I
this
didn't
is
trust him
happening.
on that. Yeah.
Oh, I've
Just,
got a
can you just
massive
check
red
on that?
flag on this. Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
then you need them to go in there because they'll be looking for it otherwise.
To be honest, if you have a massive, massive red flag, you could probably trust it and rule them out and not waste your manager's time. I mean, but again, it comes down to years and years of experience.
Yeah.
And
that's why it's okay. This is why we also need to be ensuring that we do keep budget for senior people in the TA space who have been there, who have done it, rather than just thinking, look, I think there is definitely a time and a place to nurture and bring juniors into the place, right? This is not what this is about.
But how are they going to do it if the companies have
How
gotten
are they
rid of
going to
those
do it if they've
incredibly
got
senior
nobody?
leaders?
Exactly. And then this is why a lot of the processes are breaking down, because there's people who don't have enough experience, who are just repeating stuff. Whereas if you had somebody that knows how to do that, then that would help everybody elevate upwards. And I think that's also
I've
something,
seen that.
I mean, exercise again.
Yeah, but also just the 2020s. I mean, it's literally fire TA, rehire TA, fire TA, because they after the overhiring. And then it was, okay, we need to cut costs. So we'll hire a global head of TA with 5 minutes experience to run a team of 20 who's never run a team before. And it's like, well, how's that person's not going to push back? You have to be able to push back. They're not going to protect the team. They're not going to set boundaries. Then they're going to overload the team with requirement. And then you end up in this very reactive TA that we currently have. Now, I am grossly generalizing, grossly, and probably making it sound worse than it is. But it is concerning. And it is a lot of the reason that I wrote this. I have spent 2 chapters making the case for the importance of talent acquisition. But for anybody who is working in talent acquisition and is listening to this, you must know who your star hires are. You must know who you brought in, who is super productive, super impactful on the bottom line, so that you can make the case in every single conversation you have to fight your corner, to get the budget that you deserve and the respect you deserve, because all they see is you're a cost on the bottom line. So you've got to be able to say, I hired John. John did this. That saved us 6 million. And they'll be like,
so, and what you've done
you did
exactly
that, did you? I bloody well did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it took me a bloody long time and a lot of tears and
he's a
sweat.
pest and he wears green.
But this is it, and it's you did exactly what is what everyone needs to do, which is aligning it to the business needs and the business goals. What's happening is you have all the company create this, right? We need to go and do that, and then the TA team and the people team go and create a whole bunch of other targets and goals for the year that are nothing related to the business goals. And it's like, no,
actually, it's interesting. I've been a bit worried about talent acquisition reading this Reboot Hiring. Shameless plug yet again. Because I thought, well, surely they'll read it and just go, well, yeah, because I've written it on your behalf kind of thing. But actually, maybe because I've written it in business speak, in management speak. I've written it thinking like this is they'll get this because I'm talking about the cost of the bottom line and the impact and productivity and all this kind of stuff. Maybe it is of value. So read it and then hand it to your managers.
Yeah, this is why it's good to
And
go
it's
back
not
to
just
the
for the bad
basics.
managers, by the way. It is
Yeah.
not. As some people keep going, it's just for the bad ones. No, it's for all
No,
of
it's
them.
just it's a book for you. If you're hiring, this is the book you want
Yeah.
to read, right? This is what you're
Yeah.
telling me.
This is the book to hand to your managers and leaders so that they get it. Buy it for
Yeah.
them. Not for Christmas now.
Oh, yeah, that
Right.
was me.
John Hazelton, we're out of time. We actually
Ah,
went
right.
live.
It
Um,
recorded. Miracle.
holy shit.
All right. Next time we do if we ever do one of these again, I'm wearing green to be sure.
Oh my God. It's like,
I have a green cup. I
what
have
have
my
we
green
been? We've
top,
been,
and I have the green thing. So
I
it's
know.
green.
So actually, the first 15 minutes of the first one we did that did go out and is actually makes sense. I think I'm in white. And then yesterday I was in red, wasn't I? And then today I'm in green.
Yes.
So we're doing the whole Christmas theme. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, John Hazelton,
That
if
was
people would
lovely.
like to get in contact with you, how would you like them to get in contact with you?
Just add me on LinkedIn and just send me a
Yeah. And just
message.
say, saw
Fancy
you
having a
talking to
chat.
Katrina.
Yeah,
Love green.
love green. Like talking about recruitment or anything else. Just
Ranting.
hit me up.
Oh, and where's your podcast?
Yeah, and the
Anyway,
podcast, Holistic Recruiter Club. If you just go to Spotify and have a look at that, or you go to YouTube, they're all
yep,
on both of those
wherever you.
places.
Yeah, and apparently mine's pissy. Probably because I'm opinionated. Thanks again, John.
Thank you a lot.